Y'all, the Women Tell All special for this season is gonna be spicy. I'm gonna be looking forward to that more than the final episode. Fun fact, I've seen alleged spoilers about how this season is gonna end, but don't worry, it's not gonna influence my recaps. I'm gonna give them to you the same way that I would if I didn't hear what's allegedly gonna happen. We're halfway through the season, and at this point in time, I'm really so confused about how they managed to give me so much and yet so little with each episode. I know the editors are intentional about what they're putting out there, but if you guys have been watching my recaps, you'll know that I've been complaining for a minute about not really seeing why these relationships are at the levels that they're at. And I'm not the only one. Other people are complaining about this, and what's going on? They really dropped the ball this season. It's like they decided to try a new game, they decided to try a new route, and they haven't quite figured it out yet. I really hope it gets better. Hey y'all, it's your girl ItsNasB, and welcome back to my recaps of Colton's season of The Bachelor. This one is for episode 6. Y'all, a lot happened this week. My notes, can y'all see? Can y'all see? I mean, never mind my screen protector that has been put on wrong, and nobody has seen fit to help me. Either way, I will be looking at my notes because 1, it's been a full week since I made them, and 2, they're just a lot. So let's get into it. So cutting straight to the chase, Onyeka and Nicole go home. We get a little bit at the beginning that's a continuation of their crap from last week, but honestly, we were all over it. So it's no surprise that they got sent home. However, we have some surprises in store for this entire episode. So first things first, we head to Vietnam. So this episode, all the ladies who haven't gotten one-on-ones are lamenting the fact that they haven't gotten one-on-ones. Spoiler alert, the ones complaining the most get sent home. And they weren't even subtle about it this episode. I've been keeping track of the ladies, so I could tell who was getting airtime, who was forming a certain kind of relationship with him, and who was not. And there was a significant bump in the amount of screen time with Demi, Katie, and Sydney. So that told me they were either leaving this episode or they were being geared up to be turned into frontrunners or whatever. I mean, I feel at this point it's clear who were already frontrunners, but it's still halfway. They could have switched it up. And as we know, they've been doing the rollouts really wonky, so anything could have happened. Really early, I noticed a change in Demi's character arc. She was much more emotional from the beginning of this episode. She was really broken up about the fact that they hadn't gotten a one-on-one and how she felt like they were headed there and all of that stuff. And I was like, girl, this is all reading very scripted to me. My Bachelor Nation eyebrows were raised. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, the first one-on-one we get is from Hannah G. And this was so vapid. I knew they were going to try and make sure that it can compete with Cassie's one-on-one from the week before. I watched it and I was left feeling like, is this the best that they could do? They're really not giving us much. It's all very shallow, there's just no substance to it. There's a lot of making out, and they give us these cute sound bites and they're cute little moments. Colton says something about wanting to eat her up like sushi because they were wrapped in leaves. They're making out in mud. They're taking a shower together, and it's like, great, more network-approved softcore porn. But where is this love story that you guys have been trying to sell us on? There is nothing to it. It's like when you have a crush on somebody and it's really great and they're making you feel all these cute things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But this is a show that's trying to sell us on something more. We're supposed to believe in a love story that's going to have us think, wow, these people really actually want to get married at the end of it. And I'm just not seeing it. So we cut to Cassie and Kaylin conveniently talking about Colton and his connection with Hannah G. And I guess this is hitting the nail on the head for what my problem is. It's not a show and don't tell season. It's very much a tell and don't show season. Because I'm hard pressed to believe that these conversations are as empty as most of them have seen. I mean, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But I feel like a lot was put on the cutting room floor, and I don't know why these decisions were made, but it's led to unsatisfaction, dissatisfaction. They need some help, and I feel like they should have called me, and I can give you a good story. I can tell you how to tell a story while keeping some mystery and all that fun stuff. We could find a happy middle. Whatever you guys have done, that hasn't been it. It's close but no cigar, but then actually not that close. Almost doesn't count. I don't know what I'm saying. Y'all need some help with the storytelling, yo. Holla at your girl. I shouldn't be the only one. I mean, the season has been getting the best ratings, but I think it has a lot to do with other factors and not so much the actual show that we're getting, because I actually enjoy making these recaps and watching recaps more than the actual episodes every week. And that should tell you something. But anyways, in this conversation, Kaylin mentions to Cassie that she thinks Hannah G relies on her looks a lot. Okay, Pat, you call out that kettle. You do that. I saw someone tweet that if Onyeka had been the one to say what Kaylin said, it would not have gone over as well. And that's true facts. So I told you what happened on their date. It's a whole spa day. They do a lot of making out. They're in the mud. They clean off all that good stuff. They go to the evening portion where they have dinner and they bond over the fact that they both have divorced parents. The conversation felt, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm trivializing something, which I'm absolutely not. It's not my intention at all. But the way it was all put together, it just makes it seem like these girls are barely giving Colton anything, and he ends up exaggerating the significance of whatever happens. It just seems like such a big deal. They really went deep, and it's like, it really didn't come off that deep to us. I wish what we saw matched what was described. Back to the date. Of course, because Colton felt like Hannah opened up to him, and because of the connection that they've been speaking about having leading up to this point, she gets a rose. I don't know that we know any more about Hannah G or Hannah G and Colton at this point in time, but we know that she's sticking around. But a really significant thing happened after this date, or maybe it was during that it was aired. Colton says he's falling for Hannah G, which is the first time he said that about anybody this season. It's actually pretty early in the game for that to happen, and it was this that let me know that Hannah G is not gonna be the winner. To me, it felt too much like an obvious misdirect, and so I guess now I have to be in the boat of people who are thinking that Cassie's gonna end up being the winner. Unless Tasia, Kaylin, I don't really see anybody else, but any of the other girls, unless one of them end up pulling like a big upset, it's gonna be down to her, just based on what they've been giving us, based on the music, based on the moments, and just me thinking of how this show has generally carried itself. I think that Colton does like Tasia, but I don't think he's gonna pick a black girl. And it's possible with Kaylin, but I don't know that they've been trying to sell us Colton and Kaylin as much as they've been trying to sell us Colton and Cassie. We'll see though. But speaking of the other top contenders, of the projected top 4, that's Cassie, Hannah G, Tasia, Kaylin, only 2 of them would be interesting to me as the Bachelorette. It would be Tasia and Kaylin. And I'm thinking also, going out of the top 4 or the top 5, the other person that I would also be interested in seeing as the Bachelorette, who I told y'all about in an earlier recap, was Elise. But I saw an interview from EC Online where one of the executives said that they're looking at her for Bachelor in Paradise, so I guess that strikes her off on the list. So it's going to be one of these 2 girls. But I saw a preview of this next episode, and Tasia apparently tells Colton that she heard Cassie and Kaylin talking about being the next Bachelorette, and it's like, I don't really know what to make of it. It's a lot, because I didn't think Tasia was going to go this route. In my notes that's coming up, I actually talk about how I didn't like that they were making it seem like she was going to go this route. I don't know what to think. Are they ready for another Black Bachelorette so soon? We're ready, but are they? I guess we'll have to stay tuned and see. Next up, we have our group date, and action star Colton is back. Your boy got his moves in, okay? He knew his mark, and he moved only the necessary parts of his body to block and to give these fake punches and kicks, and bless his heart. The action star Colton is not content to just be up there by himself. He apparently wants a partner. So this week's challenge is quite physical. The ladies learn fight moves a la vovinam. So because they're in Vietnam and The Bachelor has a spin-off version, they had the host from there come and join Chris Harrison, and the ladies showed their moves, and it was a mess. I wish we saw more of it with more of the ladies, but they're picking and choosing what they want to show us. They're very particular about their storylines. So the ladies had to face off. They had to pair up and go against each other. And it was all fun and games until Katie and Demi had to face off. And that's where we learned that Demi has a lot of bark and pretty much no bite. She took a hit or a few to the face. You gotta get a bodyguard or something, sis. You gotta get a bodyguard and a mouth guard, because you don't got the hands. You don't got the hands, and it's a cold world out there. I don't even know what to say to you, but to be honest, I think it was a moment that was to have Demi look vulnerable. I feel like they were playing that up a lot this episode. It was all in the vein of making her look softer. I guess they didn't want her departing being thought of as the super bitch who was like upsetting everybody by not caring about their feelings or not catering to them with the mommy issues. They wanted to give something more to her story, which I can appreciate. While I appreciate it though, I don't know if I took it all as sincere, but I feel like she did all she needed to do to be able to go on Paradise. And I found it so funny that both her and Onyeka, like, it's no secret that a lot of Bachelor Nation, like, look at them and it's like, y'all aren't here for Colton. Which was, like, a big theme this episode, but I'll get into that. Both she and Onyeka were setting themselves up to go on Paradise. I think after this episode, they've both definitely cemented their spots to be on Paradise. It's really funny, though, because Onyeka gets sent home because of some mess that she started. The same mess that Demi encouraged her to start. And it was hilarious at the beginning of this episode to hear Demi say about Onyeka and Nicole that they both dug their own graves, knowing that she encouraged Onyeka to take up the shovel. As I said, it's a cold world, honey. It's a cold world. But anyways, in the night after the group date, we see the ladies seek reassurance from Colton. There's a lot of seeking of reassurance. This is to be expected. This is what happens when you're dating multiple people, when they all know about each other and when they can see you hanging with the other people that you're dating. It's like a lot of compounding factors, and he knew this going in. So I don't feel sorry for him. That's your job as the Bachelor. That's your job as the lead. So do it. Did he do a good job? For the ones that he wanted there, yes. You could tell that at this point in time, Colton really was of this mindset of, I'm not here to waste time and energy on those who I'm not feeling anything for, which you gotta respect. Well, I don't know if it was even necessarily prominent with everybody, but it was clear with Sydney. But I'll get to that. His convo with Katie, I found that misleading. I mean, she did what she is supposed to do. She mustered up some tears, some sadness, and he even said to her, this is what I like to see. I like when you open up, or whatever the heck he said. But, spoiler alert, again, even though I mentioned it at the beginning of this, Katie gets sent home, and I saw it coming. But based on Colton's response in that convo, I felt like he gave her false hope, and that he gave us false hope. I don't know if it proves or disproves my theory about him loving a crying woman. But what I tell y'all about, I was right. He said it though. He said it. Anyways, Sydney straight up confronts him about their relationship. She's like, hey, I see you're giving attention to all these other people. You're not giving me that same attention. Do you think that will change? Do you think that you'll be able to give me that chance? What's up? And they have like a 2-part conversation, by the way. So he gives her a very lackluster, generic response. You could tell that this wasn't going anywhere. Colton's heart and even his head just wasn't into it. I don't even remember what he said, but I know that if I was seeking reassurance from somebody and that's how they responded to me, I would just start packing my stuff, which is what Cindy ended up doing. She tells him that he's making safe choices, and she is the first, let's note that she is the first of what ends up being 3 women to say something like this to Colton. But even though she's the first to do this, she is the second woman of this entire season to opt to go home. So she didn't get the answers that she wanted from Colton, and she had made up her mind from before that if she didn't, she was gonna go home. And that's exactly what happened. And I can't fault her for that. You know, don't waste your time, sis. It's really unfortunate that all of these different narratives and these different approaches to the show have been taken on Colton's season, because it's looking like these women are so over him. When I think it's just more about having contestants who aren't really here for the concept of the show. And it's weird because they know what it is going in. It's not new by any means, but I think what we're seeing is more people who are realizing in the moment, like while they're in it, that this is not for me, and this is not something that I like. I don't know what that means for the future of the franchise, but I think we're seeing a turning point. Colton doesn't seem as broken up about her leaving. That's no surprise. There's never been any kind of connection, forced or not, between the two of them. But Tasia seems really surprised by it and emotional about it. So when Sydney leaves, her parting words to Colton are about not being distracted by shiny things, which is reference to one or more of the women that are still left behind. Okay, girl, are you saying you're dull? What I mean? Colton was apparently confused, or he thought he knew what she meant, but then later on, when he realized that he was wrong or whatever, he was confused again. It was a mental cluster. It was a mindfuck. A lot happened for Colton mentally and emotionally, and they really showed us him grappling with all that he'd heard by the end of the episode. Kadir. Also on that group date night, Demi spoke to her mom on the phone for the first time since she'd been out of jail. So the first time without having to go through talking to whosoever are the people that are in charge of giving the calls to the prisoners. And she decides that an appropriate time to do that is while she's sitting down and having a moment with Colton. There was so much with that moment. You know, like, what's the word? There was so much that was questionable about that. I mean, Colton went along with it, but I can just imagine that that's not something that you want to do in such a situation, not just because of how soon it was, but that's not the moment. I can't imagine whose idea it was. And then the conversation or the bits that we were shown was a little, it felt like there was an invasion of a very private moment, and we should not have been privy to that. But even after Demi sharing such an intimate moment with Colton, and then all the other women that he had spoken to, Tasia, who ends up getting the root rose, and Hannah B gives us yet another face for the history books. That girl tells us some stories with her face. I mean, I've seen talk of people, wondering about her being the Bachelorette, but I don't know how I'd feel about that. She's good TV, but I don't know if she's good romance TV. Not in the way that The Bachelor has been trying to have romance be. But hey, I'm willing to be surprised. I feel like we'd get more ha-ha moments than lovey-dovey moments, and I don't know. Could she do it? Could she be all flirty and at some point sexual with several men? I don't know. She needs something like The Real World to go on. Maybe even Survivor. Hey, the girl is good at that stuff. I don't think this is the last that we'll see of Hannah B. Maybe, I'm saying it like she's already off the show. But come on, she's not gonna win. Not because of anything wrong with her, just the way that they have set this girl's story up. She is not winning this show. But she could do well on Survivor, on Fear Factor, on quite a few other shows actually, and I don't think this is the last that we'll see of her. But anyways, tangent. What I have here, I said Hannah B doesn't look pleased, but duh, she wants it for herself, and she did great on the challenge. Which, like, again, she's doing great on the challenge, and we're seeing where the women who are actually excelling at the challenges, they're not getting anywhere with Colton. Not really. Not for doing well on the challenge. And it's like, at this point, I would have peeped game and just stopped trying. Why bother? Why bother trying? Next up, we have the one-on-one with Colton and Kirpa. A date so quick, it was forgettable. I didn't see this one-on-one coming. We've barely gotten anything from Kirpa. Folks who remember Kirpa's chin bandage from last week longer than they'll remember this date. They didn't address it in last week's episode, and I actually didn't think it was that big of a deal, but apparently a lot of people did, and so we got footage of Kirpa talking about what happened, and it turns out that she had slipped on some slippery rocks while trying to take some selfies, and she got a cut, and she had to get some stitches in the hospital, but she's all fine now this week to go on her date with Colton. And I'm hard pressed to see anybody who just from this side, from watching it, or even the other girls there experiencing it, who would have seen it coming. And you can't tell me that this isn't about maintaining the diversity quota. Up until this point, they've given us nothing about Kirpa. All I can tell you is that she's a beautiful girl and she probably has a great personality, but they've done her such a disservice with how little of her that they've shown us. I'd have loved to have seen more of her, to have gotten more of an idea of who she was as a person. But to be honest, that's something that I'd say about most and actually maybe all of the girls this season, even the ones who have gotten a lot of airtime. So I don't feel like spending more time talking about this date than they spent showing us. So what happened was they went spearfishing. They had a moment with the urchins after they had stabbed them. Then they went on the night portion of the date. Kirpa spoke about the fact that she had been engaged before to somebody that she was in a relationship with for 8 years. He was a virgin waiting for marriage. She said it was the same as with Colton. Colton had to stick up in to say, hey, my thing isn't about waiting for marriage. It's about waiting for a special person or the right person or whatever he says. For whatever reason that I can't tell, he decides to give her a rose at the end of the night. It was a very meh date. Like, it had nothing to do with who Kirpa is. But there was no connection. And yet still somehow, he gave her a rose. Okay. Next up, we have a twist that I did not see coming. Demi gets sent home, y'all. She didn't choose to go home, and that's what I thought was gonna happen from the preview of this episode from last week. And the scandalous part about her getting sent home to me is the fact that she got sent home after telling Colton that she was falling for him. And again, after she had that moment where she spoke to her mom on the phone with him there beside her. Ooh. Leading up to it, she was there in her room putting on her makeup, and they spliced something together. Like, I heard it the very first time. Y'all know I'm here for listening to these clips and what sounds off. And there was a moment where you don't see her say it. You never see her say it, but you hear her say something about Colton not leaving Vietnam a virgin or him losing his virginity in Vietnam. I don't remember exactly how they put it together, but I feel like they put different audio recordings together. She went to his room to make a move and she got rejected. And damn. After that, though, we cut to her in the confessional talking about how she never gets chosen. She never gets picked. And nobody ever loves her back. And it is in such contrast. It is in such contradiction to everything that we've seen and heard from Demi leading up to this. And I'm not trying to trivialize anybody's feelings, but sis, you are 23. How many times have you been rejected? Like, that's quite a sob story there. And so we get to see that the crying that was in the preview from last week was of her, Hannah B and Hannah G. They were all apparently rooming together, or maybe this is just showing the bond that all of them had. They were sad to see her go. Well, Hannah B was sad. Hannah G looked like she was sleepy. She was just like, okay, let me rub your back, let me rub your... And I get it. It was late at night. Anyways, this moment solidified for me that Colton is not playing around. He's not feeling it. He's not gonna fake it. But Demi also leaves Colton with some parting words about the women left behind. She tells him that he needs to be careful and that the choices that seem safe won't make him happy in the long run. So we're at warning number 2, and it's really getting to Colton because according to him, it's his biggest fear to get to the end of this and propose to somebody and have them not be ready. Apparently, he thought that Demi was who Sydney was talking about, and so now I'm like, did you cut Demi because of what Sydney said or because you weren't feeling her? Was it a combination of both? I don't know. But at this point in time, after he cuts Demi and Demi is like, honey, you still got some problems. There is still something not great left in the bunch. Good luck. Colton is like, okay? So we go into the rose ceremony with 3 women already having roses. Hannah G, Tasia, and Kirpa. There are 5 women left without roses, and we see that there are 4 roses. They've started counting the roses and letting us know beforehand, which is actually quite helpful. The women left without roses were Katie, Heather, Hannah B, Caitlin, and Cassie. And I could tell y'all that of that bunch, based on where we were in this season, Casey was going home. And even if they hadn't given her all of the extra screen time this episode, I would have been able to predict it. Cassie and Kaylin were obviously safe. It's not time yet to send home Hannah B, especially because they've been showing us them building something rather than things going left. He just shared Heather's first kiss with her last week, and a big deal was made of that. So Katie was the only one. And even though something was happening with Colton and Casey early on, at some point in time, they started drifting. So Katie had to go. Kudir. In her leaving, she becomes the 3rd woman to say to Colton, hey, you need to be careful about the women that are still left behind. She says to him that there are girls there who are not there for the right reasons. Not the first time we've been hearing that this episode as viewers, but it seems like in the past few days or whatever, it's the first time that Colton has been hearing this, and it's really gotten to him. And honestly, looking at all of it, it felt kind of mean to me, especially when you added it all up. Even if their intentions were good, to say that to somebody, to plant that kind of seed in their head, it's obviously going to stick and it's going to grow. It seems really shady, and not just to the people who are left behind. It's kind of cruel. It's not cool. I don't know if there's a proper way to do something like that, but I can't think of one that won't mess with somebody's head if you say that about people that they're still into. There was some shady cutback to Cassie and Kaylee at one point, and then there was shady cutback to Hannah B and Heather. And it's like, are any of them really there for the right reasons? Are any of these people, including Colton, ready to get married? With Onyeka gone and now Demi, we gotta find a reason to stir up some drama. And this is where they're going. We cut back to Colton rightfully having some doubts. He says he thought that Sydney was referring to Demi, and then when he cut Demi, he didn't know who she was talking about. And then when he cut Katie, he had even less of an idea. And it's like, stick it out there for your brother. Go with God. Then there's that moment at the end where we see Tasia talking to Kirpa. And Tasia says something like, watch it be us 2. It's down to us, the last 2. Let me see what I said. I didn't even put the captions. I just wrote that the captions don't really make sense in general, much less to make sense for Tasia to say to Kirpa. Not if it's about being the final 2. Maybe she was talking about the fact that they are the last 2 non-white women. They're the last two women of color left. After Katie left, it was only them who weren't white and blonde. Are there any brunettes? Are there any white brunettes? Nope. They were the only two. So she was probably like, look, it's only the two of us that's out here rocking that melanin. I also noted that Tasia is smart, and I don't think that she would really think that Kirpa has such a relationship or connection or has enough of a chance in this competition for it to actually come down to her and Kirpa as the final two. So that whole scene just didn't make sense to me. It seemed messy on the part of the editors and producers. I felt like, okay, now that Onyeka's gone and now Katie, you have one last black girl, and so you guys are turning to her to have her be messy. That was just my thought. That was just my feeling. As I said earlier, there's a preview that showed that when Tasia says Colton wants the tea and somebody needs to give him, she ends up bringing the tea to him, which I did not expect. So maybe I should shave off my bias a little. I don't know. Tasia is seen telling Colton some tea about the other girls, particularly Cassie and Kaylin, saying that they're not here for him. She said the reason for that was they were talking about being the next Bachelorette and saying that they wouldn't be ready to be engaged at the end of it, which I had thoughts on them saying both of those things because they're not necessarily as bad as you would think, but that would be for the next episode. So that clip that I mentioned of Tasia talking to Colton is not from the official preview that we got of the episode. It was from the Twitter account. It was separate and apart from that preview. The preview that we got was actually not just for the next episode, but for the next few episodes, and even a shot of, I assume, the finale where we see Colton with a ring box. And so I don't know what to make of it. There was a lot of speculation and I didn't even necessarily catch everything in it. But it's clear that we're in for some juicy stuff. Now I'm gonna stay tuned to find out. And hopefully you guys will stay tuned to these recaps. As usual, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to hit like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Share this video everywhere and you will see me in the next one. Bye!